Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. For those of you who don't know me, and I think my whole family's here, so there's probably a few of you who don't know me. My name is Richard Mack. I am honored to be one of the board members of the 92nd Street Y. In that job, we are, in the spirit of real estate development, trying to upgrade the facilities of the 92nd Street Y, and I see my co-head of that esteemed challenge, Jeff Blau, in the audience. He'll be out trying to figure out how we're going to pull this off and talking to all of you later. So don't run when you see Jeff coming. But Jeff and I share something in common. We're partners with your two guests here tonight, Steve Ross and Bill Mack. And I feel very lucky as a board member to be up here introducing them. A little bit about the 92nd Street Y before we get on with this. The 92nd Street Y is renowned for this. It's not just a place where you go to use the gym, but it's really one of the preeminent centers for intellectual thought in New York. And series like this, interviews, lectures, concerts, are part of the fabric of New York and part of what makes 92nd Street Y such a great place. And I'm really honored to be up here and to be part of this. And participation is also a vital part of what the 92nd Street Y is all about. And we're going to be looking for your questions tonight. So please, if you have questions, there'll be a place for you to write them down and submit them. And it's a way that we all can learn from two of the brightest stars in real estate, who I'm sure will have something interesting and fun to say and answer to just about any question that you have. They're going to collect these questions midway through the program. I'm going to introduce Diane Brady, who is going to be interviewing Steve and Bill. Diane is an award-winning writer and senior editor at Bloomberg Businessweek, where she covers global trends, strategies, and newsmakers like Steve and Bill. And along with interviewing leaders and thinkers for the magazine, she frequently engages them in conversations like this. This won't be her first time, and I think she's going to make tonight extra special. I do want to mention that Diane has recently written a book called Fraternity, which is an inspiring account of 5 young men and their mentor that was named one of Amazon's best books of 2012. So before Steve, Bill, and Diane come out, I want to say a little bit about the two of them. I've seen them interact quite a bit over the few years. And one of the only thing that I've ever seen them agree on was that Columbus Circle and Time Warner Center was a good project. And there were many doubters, and to see the two of them come together to pull off such a magnificent development was pretty amazing. Now, as far as agreeing, I've never seen them agree on anything since. So tonight, I think that disagreement and the fun that they enjoy as partners will be expressed tonight, and you'll see some great views and some different perspectives on the real estate world as it's evolving in 2012 and 2013 and beyond. So with that, I am going to welcome Diane, Bill, and Steve to the stage. Thanks very much. Have fun.
Thank you. They can't even decide where to sit, so it's... Thank you, everybody, and thank you for the plug for my book. My publisher will be very happy because I never plug it myself, so thank you. I'm so looking forward to tonight. I think we're going to have a lively discussion on a number of different topics, and I'm just going to do some quick introductions. I think most people do know you, because I do know, in fact, that some families in the crowd. But I was going to start with Steve, but in fact, I'm going to start with Bill, because you took the middle seat, which gives you the right of... So William L. Mack, Bill Mack, founder, chairman of Area Property Partners, chairman of Mack Cali Realty. It's one of the largest publicly traded REITs, right? It's if not, I know he's certainly a staple on Bloomberg TV. We love him dearly for when he shows up. Ditto for Steve. Chairman of the Guggenheim, vice chair, North Shore, Long Island Jewish Health System, big philanthropist. That's one of the themes I think I'd like to touch on tonight with both of you. But obviously a master, that's why they called it Master Class. And we have the second master with us here, Stephen M. Ross, Steve Ross, chairman, founder, and until September you were the CEO. We now have the real power broker in the audience here with related companies.
I have to watch what I say.
Who is called the last master builder, formed related in 1972. I think what is your portfolio now, $15 billion, is that right? Plus, you don't like to say. It's private, you don't have to say. You're among friends here though. So, and of course, known for the Time Warner Center, where these two gentlemen have worked together, Hudson Yards, which has risen from the ashes, we like to say, of the Olympics.
Well, it hasn't risen yet.
Well, rising. 26 acres, $15 billion. And of course, has also played a key role in groups like Lincoln Center and is owner of the Miami Dolphins. So sports fans, Jets fans, by all means, please ask questions about the Miami Dolphins. We're guessing whether either team can make it at this point to the playoffs, but we shall see. I'm going to start, obviously, what part of the takeaway tonight I hope will be insights about what's happening in the market, but I think part of what I'd like this group to take away and what I'd like myself is some insight into both of you as people, your friendship. I'm not saying you're friends, no pressure, but
we're friends.
But although you can't play golf against each other, you can play. But I want to get a sense of both of you as individuals. And to start, I'm going to start with you, Bill. Give me a sense of what attracted you to real estate in the first place, because you did this sort of post. You came out with the Wharton MBA. You could have done anything. Talk about what brought you into seeing a small property in, was it North Bergen, New Jersey, and from there, legend.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. My father always preached to me that real estate was a very good business because you could earn money while you slept. And that other businesses...
You can also lose money while you sleep in real estate.
Absolutely. But once you had a rented building, what he was saying is that you didn't have to work it every day. And, I was pretty good with numbers, so I decided, I didn't quite make the MBA. I'm lucky I made the undergraduate. So I decided that I would like to seek a career in real estate. And so I went to...
This was after the Air Force?
Well, that was a very short stint.
Okay.
So I went to work trying to put together deals with a real estate broker in Manhattan, and I saw that there was a great flow of business to New Jersey, and although in the 8 or 9 months I didn't work there, that I worked there, I couldn't put together a deal. I saw there was this flow of business to New Jersey in one-story buildings and warehouses, and so with the financial backing of my father, I bought a 5-acre piece in North Bergen, New Jersey, got a trailer, and I was a developer, and I was a pretty young kid, and I was pretty good with numbers.
And did you have to convince your father, or did he just say real estate plus Bill equals?
He was in many businesses, and he built some warehouses in Queens and Long Island.
Yeah.
And he had a partner in it, and so it was easy for him to back me and open a new business in New Jersey, and we started building warehouses, and we built quite a bit of them. We were fortunate enough to be successful. We caught a good wave of demand, and we got into suburban office space about 10 or 12 years later, and from there we built a number of very large suburban office buildings. We kind of spread out to a couple of states, and a little bit in Florida, a little bit in Arizona. And then I decided that I wanted to do something a little different and without the family. And I started with a friend of mine who was my neighbor and who we had invested some money with in New York, a private equity business. And it's evolved from here. I guess we have probably invested in equity close to $14 billion and what's probably $75 billion worth of buildings around the world in the last 20 years. And we've been very fortunate. you got to work hard, keep your head down, and be a little lucky and catch the demand and the waves going the right way. And we were very fortunate enough to have caught a lot of good situations and a lot of good demand waves and followed it and got a little lucky as well. Because you can't be successful without having a little good fortune.
Well, and yeah, that's it. And I think we'll go through the good times and the bad times. There's no question. I think luck is part of it, but a lot of people had the same luck and didn't do as much with it. So,
And then I met Steve.
And then you met Steve.
So
Steve, you're not from New York. I mean, you were a Brooklyn Tech grad. You've this very iconic sort of background. You came from Detroit. You were a tax attorney. Is that right?
Right.
And so how did you? Now you got the loan from your mother. Is that?
No, she gave me money to
She gave you
survive.
money.
No, that was after I came here for a job, and I worked on Wall Street for a short period of time. And
Why not stay in Detroit as a tax attorney? Do I need to? Is that question answer itself, or?
That answers it. I was single, and I finished my last year of school in New York and went back there.
Right.
And it was Detroit, and having lived in New York, and I guess I thought the opportunities were probably greater in New York, or they weren't as good in Detroit as I thought they might be when I went there. And so I came to New York to kind of, make a fortune, if you will, very optimistic and ambitious.
You started in affordable housing. What's your first foray into real estate before we?
Well, I was working
Talk
for
about
Wall
the two.
Street. I was working for a Wall
Yeah.
Street firm, and I got fired for the wrong reasons, and I
And
couldn't.
what were the
see-
wrong reasons?
Well, the person I was working for didn't really realize my capabilities, and we didn't see eye to eye, and it was somewhat short-lived. And that's a whole long story, the things that. But anyway, and then I really couldn't really go face, looking at another interview for a job, and I thought my track record, with a short period of time at an investment banking firm wouldn't really attract too many people. So I really kind of looked at myself and said, where are the greatest opportunities? What are my strengths? And wrote up a business plan of how I thought a real estate company should be formed. And, I had to sustain myself. So, I started, and I was very fortunate. And it's now a little over 40 years later, and I would have never believed, we are where we are today.
How did the two of you meet? Because it was prior.
He probably doesn't remember.
Okay,
But
so you talk about you give
Meet
your.
from YPO?
right, good.
I remember.
Okay.
I was, this was in about the late 70s, I would say, and I had applied for admission to the Young Presidents Organization, and Bill came to interview me,
Oh.
and it found out that we were talking, and someone that I had known had owed some money to him, and I was able to collect the money for him. So I got into YPO because I collected the money for Bill.
That's you know what? You're a man who gets things done, right? Was that Bill? That's your recollection as well, or is this a?
I don't remember you collecting the money, but I thank you if you did. No, we did meet for YPO, and I remember I did interview him. And when I came to New York, we renewed our acquaintance, and we've done quite a few things together over the years, and they've all been very, very successful.
Before we get into sort of, especially Time Warner, Hudson Yards, et cetera, I want to get both of you to comment on where we are right now with just the economy, where the opportunities are, rather than sort of have that come at the end. I think there's just a lot of curiosity. You've got insecurity around whether we'll have rising rates, rising sea level, and how that affects property, and then just in general the state of insecurity. I'm curious to get your thoughts, both of you, in terms of where you see the opportunities and how nervous you may be. And I'm going to start with you, Bill.
Well, I don't think there's any question that the insecurity in the world today is probably slowing growth down significantly. And particularly in this country, having a dysfunctional political system at the present time, I think Steve and I would both agree that, we need a solution, because both the consumer that makes up the economy and the business community that creates the jobs are all basically, if not sitting on their hands, They're kind of waiting around to see what's going to happen. And even difficult news, even if the program going forward, that embodies avoiding the fiscal cliff, even if it's not as good as people would like, even if they don't like it, it will at least provide them with some surety, and they will understand what the rules are. Now business does not understand the rules, so how can they hire? Why should they hire? And they're hoarding cash. They're not doing badly. And the consumer is a little spooked right now. They're a little nervous. And they're probably holding back a little. I would expect that this Christmas will be worse of a shopping season than it ordinarily would be. It'll probably be fair to medium. But things would be a lot better if there was some definition as to where the economy was going and where the politics was going. Besides all of the problems that we have throughout the country, throughout the world, which embody what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in Europe, and what's happening in Asia. So we're in a very tenuous situation, and we need to get out of the dark into the light and have a little optimism to be able to go forward and have the kind of growth that this country is capable of having.
I mean, I agree with everything Bill said.
That's
from my
not
own
good.
perspective. Well, I mean,
I'm just
from
kidding.
I think everybody
Yeah.
today recognizes where we are as a country.
Yeah.
You know, there's probably a new paradigm in America today. We're not going to be that fast-growing country that we were in the past. But I think I'm a real estate developer, and I kind of look ahead, and where's America going? And you believe in America. I think that's probably the first thing. And it's a long-term vision that you have to have, because when you're developing something, the time you tie up the land, you get your zoning and your approvals, you build a building, you have to kind of realize or have an idea of what that market might be like. And being in New York, we're very fortunate in that New York is probably the world's greatest real estate market, even in these times. And I mean, cap rates are at an all-time low. The values are probably as high as they've been. There's not as much activity because people today, don't make decisions in these type of times. They're waiting to see what might happen. But I think these are really the greatest of times for someone as a real estate developer. One, there's a shortage of capital, number one, today. There's a lot of equity on the sidelines, but the banks aren't lending like they used to. And the yields are so low, so there's not as much activity as there's been unless you have to do something.
So you see a lot of opportunity. You're both global players. I want to talk about New York City. You've not been, I don't think of you as having been heavily invested in New York City in recent years. I mean, give me a sense of your view of New York City before we don't have to go hyper local, but I think it's very interesting, talking about the future of this city. Obviously, there's a lot of attention on Hudson Yards. I think we should talk a bit more about the Time Warner, but what's your view of where the opportunity is right now in New York?
Well, I agree with Steve. New York is one of the greatest cities, if not the greatest city in the world. New York benefits from being very diverse. New York benefits as being a safe haven for capital, and it attracts a lot of visitors and a lot of capital, and will continue to attract visitors and capital if we continue to have enlightened leadership similar to what we've had over the last 12 years in this city, or 11 years in this city.
The last 20 years have been pretty good.
Yeah, the last 20 years.
Are you nervous right now?
Look, I think we're all concerned about about the next administration, but New York has always been a unique place. Even in the Depression, there was some life in real estate, but it's uniquely positioned. A lot of foreign capital feels safe with their capital here. I would say that London and New York are probably the most favorable to attracting capital from all around the world. A lot of people will want to put money in here as investment capital. A lot of tourists will want to visit. So if we can keep this city going, if we can have safe streets and clean streets and improve our education system and have leadership that will help attract jobs, then there's no limit to this city. This city is a great city, and this city has a great appeal for investment, and particularly in real estate. So, we can talk about, real estate and the forms of real estate and the demand in certain types of real estate around the world and in New York are changing tremendously. But this city, I would never sell this city short. This city has got great opportunity, and I think that, going forward, on a relative basis, it has and it will continue to outperform the other cities.
Yeah. And you've also had a big bet in multifamily dwellings, so New York is where we have a lot of that. The headquarters are moving to Hudson Yards for related. Is that a symbolic move, or do you really think that the center of gravity in Manhattan is going to move more toward the west?
Yes, I mean, right now today, if you were to, most New Yorkers would probably think the Rockefeller Center is really the heart of the city. And being involved in the Hudson Yards and knowing what our plans are and what I think will really actually happen, we've just broken ground. It's a large mixed-use project that's roughly over 15 million square feet. And the first phase we look to have completed within 5 years. It'll be 6.5 million square feet. So it has a large critical mass with office towers, retail, cultural center, hotels, and residential. And when you look at the transportation, the government has put in over $4 billion in that area. And it's really like the new frontier for New York. And it's like, a terrible pun, but it's like the perfect storm has occurred. You have the completion of the 7 line. It'll take place by early 14. The Hudson Boulevard, which is a $500 million expansion of this boulevard going north from 34th Street, where all the new office buildings have all been rezoned. You have $500 million into expanding the Javits Center. You have, like I said, the $2 billion going to this 7 line.
Does Hurricane Sandy make it any different for both of you?
Well, I mean,
obviously, there's been articles about the concerns of.
I mean, people were concerned. It was like after 9/11, when we were building Time Warner Center. We had just started. We were putting our steel up, and that occurred. People said New Yorkers would never live in high rises again, and we lost all of our contracts. And certainly today, that's an afterthought. People don't even think of that. I think there's certain things the government has to do to prevent those 100-year storms occurring on a regular basis. But I think that, I know if we had Hudson Yards built, it wouldn't have been impacted by the hurricane. But I think you're creating this new center that people, that with the High Line I was saying, that we're moving our offices, we're leasing up. I think corporations are seeing what the potential is there, and we get our highest rents right now in the city. We have apartments throughout the city, and our highest rents are in Chelsea. So it tells you that this area is really ready for this development.
Now, Bill, why are you not invested in Hudson Yards?
I didn't ask him.
It's very easy. I think Hudson Yards is a very ambitious project, and it has taken and will take a lot of time, and it has all of the infrastructure to be a very important part of New York. Sure. We invest all over the world. We invest in New York. We continue to invest in the New York area. Hudson Yards is a great project. We are investing in a lot of things which we think are great as well.
That's okay. No more specificity. We'll leave it.
Let's leave it at that.
Well,
but yeah, go ahead.
I will go back because I think Time Warner is an interesting case. I'm interested in, how you succeed in this industry. You both make it sound so easy. The timing, certainly being bold, having a good sense of where the world's going. But a lot of people fail. It's very much an ebb and flow, cyclical industry. And I'm curious, walk us back to the Time Warner, that neighborhood, the skepticism, And was it going to be an obvious home run to both of you? And just give us a sense of sort of what made it work.
Real estate takes a very long time, and neighborhoods sometimes take a very long time to mature. When I was 13 years old, my father was demolishing the buildings to make way for the Coliseum. It was 1954, 53 and 54. And he took me out to the job, and I remember it. And he said to me, you know, son, someday this is going to be a very good neighborhood. In 1954, and I looked around, and it looked pretty lousy to me. I didn't know. I was a kid of 13 or 14 years old. And it took a very long time for the neighborhood to improve and for the infrastructure to go in. But I think that Steve and I got the impetus and the belief that Time Warner would become successful, because I think we did a job together as 50-50 partners on 56th and Broadway.
Right.
And it was an office building with Bertelsen on the bottom and with condominiums on the top. And we started selling the condominiums for $800 a square foot, and we ended up selling them at the end for $1,400, and we averaged a little over $1,100 a square foot. But at the end, we were selling them for $1,400, and they went pretty quickly. And I think we said to ourselves, you know, this building it was a very successful job. This building was very successful. The condominiums did very, very well. The office space went. We projected at that time $1,500 a square foot for Columbus Circle in Time Warner Center, and that we could get a tenant, you know, an office tenant for Time Warner Center. And I think that gave us a lot of the impetus to bid for Time Warner Center. And, you know, it was a very complex project. It was a very ambitious project at the time. At the time, it was the largest construction loan ever made at that time. And we were able to put together you know, Steve did a great job. He put together a great team and a great bid. The first time around, we were running second, and they were about to award it to someone else when Mayor Giuliani at the time said, I want 100,000 feet of public space. So call off the bidding. They rebid it. We redesigned the project, and we were fortunate.
And we got Time Warner.
And what's the,
We
I
didn't
think
have
that's
Time Warner
the
at
thing.
that time.
Is if
Yeah,
you
we
build it, they
were
will
fortunate to win the bid. But the biggest thing, and I'll leave it to Steve from here, the biggest thing in building a project like that, or any project, is to have enough financing and proper financing to be able to build it from start to finish and complete it. A lot of the developers, you know, this is such a high leverage game generally, that a lot of the developers don't go in with enough financing and with enough staying power. But it has proven over time that if you have the staying power, and if you have a good plan, and you work hard and have a little luck, you'll be successful. And Time Warner Center was a very good plan. You know, the team worked very, very hard on it. There was some good creative thinking on it. We got caught when we were starting to market our condominiums when 9/11 hit, and we got a little setback, but we proved that we could sell it out, and we sold it out at the time of a little over $2,400 a foot. And today, the same apartments are going for $5,500 or $6,000 a foot. So.
And so what do you think was the critical difference? Because I think it's interesting, even with Hudson Yards, obviously you had it, then you didn't have it, and you had it again.
Well, I mean, we looked at the site. I mean, you know, real estate's about location.
Yeah.
And New York at that time, when they had the bid, it wasn't, it was meddling along, you know, and it wasn't where it is today. But the location was superb. And I looked at it as the best site in the city that had been really undeveloped. And so that, when that came up, my office was on the corner of 59th and Madison, and I looked at it all day for about 10 years, thinking about what should be there. And it really deserved a world-class type of project, even though the market, at that point wouldn't have allowed it. So I think, one, we won the bid because we put in that type of bid. And the market really came to us because of the location and the site. So the vision there was seeing something and knowing that New York was improving, that it would be at that point in time. And then when we got Time Warner as a tenant, we won the project, amongst all the developers, and that was really a seminal event in our corporation's, growth. And it really gave me the confidence. I mean, no one had ever built a building quite that complex with 5 different uses within the one building. But it was something that I think that, one, we learned an awful lot. We were successful. People doubted us. There's nothing better than doing things that everybody says you
When you
can't
stared
do.
for 10 years, was that what your vision was at the time? Or were you
Well, I
thinking
mean-
on a...
He kept telling me, I've been looking this way for 10 years.
And I see, in my office, and I owned the building at that point, where my office was, and I said, I'd have to really move my office because I've been staring at it. God forbid I should have lost, So we were very fortunate. It was great.
I will tell you, it was a very successful job, but that was like an erector set to put together 5 different functions. And people were right. It cost a lot more than we ever anticipated, but we did a lot better, and it turned out to be a very good job.
Talk about the pivotal moments. I mean, especially sort of when you look at your career, and even go back before Time Warner, for each of you, I'd love to get sort of a favorite moment where you just sort of, it took you to almost a new level in terms of your ability to kind of play, especially in the New York space. But obviously you both have incredible amounts of capital, you're global players now, but I'd like to walk back a little bit to when you were sort of in those early years and what you think was sort of a critical project or even a critical strength that you brought to the table that you feel differentiated you from the many, many other people competing in this space, because it's a tough city, tough industry to navigate. Bill?
Well, I guess the first success in moving from the suburbs, building suburban office buildings and warehouses before that, was when Olympia in York got into trouble, and we
The Reichmans?
Yes, the Reichmans got into trouble, and we purchased and controlled for a while their major buildings in New York. I had just come into New York, and
how did you get that? I mean,
well, we had the capital, and we were able to buy. At that time, we were able to buy the bonds that backed about 4.5 million square feet of office space for 50 cents on the dollar, and there was a yield, and it was current on those buildings of 14%. So it looked like a pretty good deal, and we were buying the buildings for, we eliminated one building, we were buying 3 million feet for about $160 a square foot. Today those buildings are probably $800 to $1,000 a square foot. So we were buying things at the time for about 50% of replacement value. It had a good cash flow, and all of a sudden we're buying 4.5 million square feet, where the biggest landlords in New York at the time probably had 5 million square feet. So that was kind of a big deal for a little boy from the country to come in and control 4.5 million feet
distressed
in the city.
distressed assets look good in retrospect. Sometimes when they're distressed at the time, everybody's thinking, this is a dog, here's a company in trouble. I mean, was there a lot of competition for these assets, and nobody had the money?
Nobody had the money.
So nobody had the money.
No,
so there's the lesson there.
I did a lot of due diligence, and I was very nervous. And I remember I went at the time to one of the big office building owners, Bernie Mendick, who's passed away at the time, and I said, "What do you think of the price, Bernie?" He said, "I think it's okay." He said,
Yeah. What about you, Steve?
Well, I mean, when I started the company, I wanted to grow a company and learn how to become a real estate developer. And I guess I'd built a lot of affordable housing, and in 1980, the city had a request for proposals to develop a large project, a mixed-use project on the East River, and I had never developed anything other than affordable housing at that point. And so we put a bid in, and I got Cadillac Fairview, which was then the largest developer in North America, public company, to be partners with me. And we beat every developer in New York, and I'm on the front page of the New York
Why
Times.
did they pick you?
I picked them.
You picked them. Why?
And
Okay.
because, I mean, you know, it really conceived the project and got
Right.
them as a financial partner. And then we won that, and then I kind of changed the name of the company, and we, as opposed to being a developer of affordable housing, we were a developer of just multifamily rentals, though we had never built anything other than affordable housing, and we won this project. And so that really propelled me to the next level of growth of the company. And then I think, and we would then got into office buildings and doing some other aspects, other sectors of real estate. And the second event was when we won Time Warner Center, when I went to Dick Parsons and tried to make a deal for Time Warner, and he told us everybody had been there before, and I had told him, Dick, this isn't about real estate. The fact that you're in Rockefeller Center, that's really NBC territory. You have to really showcase your company. And he said to me, we talked for a little bit. He said, I'll give you an answer in 10 days. I'll have board approval in 60 days. And that one event probably is the reason we were selected, as we had Time Warner as our partner, to create what was now the Time Warner Center, obviously. So, and then, you know, I think we've loved to take on tasks where we have taken on large projects. They're really transformative in looking, you know, in growing the city and growing with the city in every single sector, you know.
Do you feel you have that transformative partner right now in the West Side? Is Coach transformative
Well, no,
enough?
Coach is a tenant.
Coach is a tenant.
Coach
so
is a
who
tenant.
do you, I mean,
Well, I
talk
mean, our
about-
company has now grown to the fact that, you know, we kind of do things ourselves, and we track the capital, and we have the capability of handling all of those things in-house. And I think, you know, the most important thing today that we've grown is the people at our company and what we're capable of doing. Because, you know, it's not any one person that can do it, and it's really being able to work together and build a team. And I probably, if you were to ask me what's the best thing you've really developed, it would be the company as opposed to the projects that we've done.
Which is what now? It's 2,000 plus. I mean, I'm sort of. Tell me a little bit about sort of the reach of the company, because especially a lot of the bets that you're both making are outside the U.S. I mean, you've got, you know, moving from China into Brazil. You obviously are worldwide. You've done a lot recently in the UK. What's your view of all these other markets relative to here? You're placing your money. If you were starting out today, with where would you be putting your money? Where would you be putting your energy?
Well, if I were starting out today, the first thing I'd learn is I'd learn to speak Chinese.
That's a mistake, let me tell you. I've been there, done that. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody.
Learning to speak Chinese?
It doesn't hurt. Now, look, there are opportunities all over the world. There are opportunities in New York, and there are opportunities in many of the great major metropolitan areas. The one thing that I see in the world today is that if one looked at the post-World War II era, there was a great rush to the suburbs. Especially in the United States, the Interstate Highway Act moved a lot of people out of out of tertiary cities into the suburbs, moved a lot of people out of the New York area into the suburbs. The suburbs grew. There was Ring Road on top of Ring Road. Today there's a great move back into all of the cities. So
Because of developments like
the young
mixed
people want to be in the cities. They want to be where the action is. They want to be where the culture is, where the shopping is, where the jobs are, where the restaurants are, where the retail is, and they want to be close to people. Technology, instead of creating more distance among people, and every time you know, I was just in Florida and waiting at a hotel to get my car. Somebody pulled up, and there's 3 people. There's 2 women and a man. And as they get out of their car, they're all on their Blackberries or on their
Hopefully not while they're
Apples.
driving, but
And so it's a world that's interconnected, and technology distances people. So one would think that the opposite would happen, that things would spread
so
out.
that's why the multifamily,
Well, the multifamily, the reason multifamily is doing so well,
can't afford a house.
that's one of the reasons, but I think there are 3 or 4 reasons for the trend in multifamily to come closer to metropolitan areas. Firstly, the theory that private houses never will go down, and that they should be bought for investment, and that would be your nest egg. Well, that theory has been shattered. Secondly, you'll never be able, never in our lifetime, to buy houses for 0 down or 5% down. Right now, the market is very tight, and you've got to put down 20 to 30% and have terrific credit to be able to buy a house. So, you know, that's another case, and so between the tight credit and also a lot of the young people are living with their parents, and as things get a little better, they will move back, and the tendency is to move back into the cities.
Yeah.
So I think that the cities will continue to attract young people. They would continue to attract young families.
And that's where you would be putting your energy?
And that's where I'd be putting my energy. Of course, the affordability of the cities, and you can go all over the small cities, the big cities, they're all doing better.
What about you, Steve? Would you be going into real estate at all at this point? Would you?
Well, I mean, I think, real estate is strictly a byproduct of the economy.
Sure.
And if you don't have job growth, the real estate market's going to be very soft. I mean, if you looked at it today, there's not a lot of job growth occurring in this country.
So is this the new normal? Because one of the questions from the audience is, have we seen the bottom of the market yet here in New York City?
I mean, New York is still very active. People are very pessimistic. I mean, are very optimistic about the future of the city. It's New York, and I think the leadership we have and the way they position New York for the future, with I think the fact that I think one of the smartest things Bloomberg has done is really put a big emphasis on the technology, because you can't have a great city today without having a large technology base, and I think that's where New York is really going to have its future growth. Mm-hmm. I think the other areas will continue to, to be the most important in the world, but the growth will really come through technology as a sector, itself. I think if I was starting up today, and I think the country, to me, that I think has the greatest growth opportunities is Brazil. It's like the United States was, say, after the war, the 50s or 60s. You have an emerging middle class with a country with a lot of natural resources. I mean, there's problems there. Their monetary system is now being stabilized, and they have a real great work ethic. And you don't have all the rules and regulations you have in China.
So what are you doing in Brazil? Are you doing a lot in Rio and Sao Paulo, or are you?
Well, I mean, we're using our expertise. We're really exporting our expertise in development, because I think we're a little bit ahead of them and have a little bit more sophistication than they do, and finding local partners there to partner with, and also the ability to attract capital. I think that's very important. I mean, Brazil, if there's any one negative, it doesn't have a large banking system that really supports real estate development. But I think we are able to attract capital and also use our expertise, as I said. So, that's an area that I think has a lot of great opportunity today. And as opposed to if I was young, I'd rather learn how to speak Portuguese today than Chinese.
Well, we'll see.
Portuguese may well be easier, but
Portuguese they're both difficult, but I think Portuguese is easier.
No, there's a lot. This definitely shows we have a New York audience here. Just a lot of questions around New York, and I want to, I'll segue with some of the other questions as well about the philanthropic work you're doing, but talk about the city's East Midtown plan, for the new buildings around Grand Central. A lot of curiosity around that, to hear both of you weigh in.
Well, I mean, what New York, what has been proposed is that they increase the density, the FAR, for buildings around in the east side, saying that most of those buildings in New York are obsolete, which is in fact over 60% of the office buildings in New York today are over 50 to 60 years old, and there is a certain amount of obsolescence, in those buildings. They have, and I think it's a good idea from that standpoint. I don't think you'll find, though, as much development occurring in any short period of time, because those buildings today are all occupied.
Yeah.
And to empty out those buildings and create sites will take years, because people today would buy those income streams that those buildings are developing at very high prices. So I don't know, I mean, I think what's really going to happen in New York, the growth won't occur in those in that area. I think the growth is more likely to occur on the far west side, where they've rezoned the areas from 34th to 41st Street, and increase the densities there, are spending $500 million to build Hudson Boulevard, and have extended the subway line to accommodate that. So I think people have talked about it. It sounds good. If you're starting from a blank slate, that would be a great idea, because people would certainly love to be closer to Grand Central and on the Upper East Side.
It's probably years away, but it will, as Steve has said, but it'll eventually happen. The one thing that hasn't been mentioned is that office space and the use of office space is different today than it was 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, into every 1,000 square feet, you'd fit 3 to 5 people. Today,
Those were the days.
yeah, today, and you live in that atmosphere.
Yes, no, we're open concept all the way.
Today, with an open concept, we're building a building in Boston that they have designed for 9 people into every 1,000 square feet. So some of the buildings, and in New York today, in any of the larger spaces, I'm not talking about the executive office spaces, you're being designed probably for 5 to 8 people, or 5 to 7 people per 1,000 square feet, or 5 to 8 people, and these buildings that are existing don't have the infrastructure to handle the new loads. They don't have the air conditioning, they don't have the elevators, some of them don't have the column spacing. They're not as efficient as building a new building with wide open column spacing, with elevators, with bathrooms, and with all of the other amenities to handle it.
So that puts a premium on the new
right.
buildings?
So the new buildings, and that's one of the reasons that that one is able to build on, on the west side, where you have so much space, and that's one of the reasons you'll be successful there, because you've got the land, you've got the zoning, and you can build those modern open plans with elevator facilities, bathroom facilities, floor loads, heights, clear heights, to be able to accommodate what the new office plan is. It's open plan, it's hoteling, and generally, the one soft spot in the United States and in the world is that we really don't need more office space. And even in an expansion, we might not need much more office space. We need different types of office space, and we need better office space. So the upzoning of the east side, over a period of time, the land value will get valuable enough for them to demolish the buildings and build new office towers there. But it's a way away, and as Steve has said, and I agree, people are, everybody today with low interest rates is looking for an income stream. And institutions and sovereign wealth funds and people are looking for returns. So they're buying the buildings at low returns, and because of the return, the price per square foot of building is back to where it was probably in 2007 or close to it. So it's going to take a good while and a good cycle for this whole change to occur in existing facilities where they can be demolished and new buildings can be put up.
So what advice do you have then, if you're a young commercial real estate professional in this city, what advice would you have each of you, taken from the prism of your own experience or also just what you see in the marketplace? And that's one of the questions here, and it could be career advice, it could be advice in terms of where to be putting their energies. Do you see a lot of misplaced energy, or I mean,
Well,
people fully appreciate
there's a great renaissance in having neighborhoods.
Yeah,
And
but New York's always been a city of
New York City is a city of neighborhoods, and that's one of the great things about it. So in many neighborhoods in the 5 boroughs, there are spots. There's great opportunities in Brooklyn and in Queens. There's great opportunities on the other side of the water from Jersey City up to Fort Lee and coming close where there is transportation and where there is land and where there is zoning. So you're going to find a lot of things going on.
I mean, people prefer to be in Manhattan if they can. I mean, those alternatives
I'm
work.
in Brooklyn.
You're in Brooklyn? Well,
But
we have something to sell you in Manhattan.
Wait, no, I'm kidding.
we got something for you. Don't worry. But I mean, there's a lot of opportunity. You have to look for it. It's a lot more difficult today.
More difficult, why?
Well, it takes
Competition,
more
capital,
It takes more capital. There's a lot fewer sites today. It takes a lot more, I think, creativity, and it seems, I guess, as you get older, you always say it was always easier back then, than it is today.
It was.
It was. Apparently it was. But, so I have a question. All this move towards smarter cities, whether it's the more environmentally friendly cities, networked, is that misplaced energy? Do you think it makes any difference in terms of the push in New York City to have more bike lanes, less traffic? I mean, is that just kind of like...
Well, you have more bike lanes and you have more traffic.
I was trying to get downtown the other day. It was unbelievable.
What's your sense, since everybody talks about this as something that's going to be critical going forward? Do you
sustainability and today it's very important. It's on everybody's minds. I mean, today when you look at tenants, they want to be in a LEEDs building, that has the latest to that. I mean, we as a country need to be doing that. We can't keep wasting and spending the amount of dollars we do for electricity and everything else that goes in those buildings. And tenants want to be technologically advanced. So I mean, these are things that people want today. I think they're more responsible. They understand the issues that are there today, and that's an area that there's no question it'll continue to grow.
I agree.
Interesting question. I think it's germane to what we're talking about. What do you think for each of you makes you unique in terms of the success you've had in the industry? What set you apart? Bill, and no false modesty, just
No, I think things are a matter of having the vision to go and I'll quote my son, not where the puck is today, but where the puck is going to be. And
that's your son quoting Gretzky. I heard
right.
Richard say that.
That's right. So I'll quote my son. And you have to look for where...
Man of taste.
Right.
That's
You have to look for where the opportunities are. And there are varied opportunities. The one thing I will say is that when Steve and I started 40-odd years ago, real estate was a cottage industry. Today you have a lot of very sophisticated professionals. You have by sophistication and by volume, there's a lot more competition as well. And what has made us successful is what's made me successful is hard work, being able to go where there was demand, being able to be careful and not be overextended.
How do you know where the puck's going to go? How do you, is that just innate? Is it something that you feel you kind of had training for? Is it something that you study carefully to figure out where the puck's going to go?
You've got to look at the trends. When I went into business, I followed the highways. I knew that the development would come along the highways as the interstate system
Right.
expanded. You know, I knew that there was a trend at the beginning towards modernizing warehouses from multi-story to one-story. So that was the trend, and I took advantage of it, and I try to be where the distribution hubs are and when transportation was. When I saw that there was a big, started to see a move out to the suburbs, we built suburban office buildings. When I thought that there was, you know, an ability to raise private equity and to do certain things in a distressed area, you know, we jumped in. So it's, you either make it on expansion or distress. And in the good times and in the boom times, you try not to be overextended. In the boom times before the downturn, everybody, you know, nobody stops. But those that are successful don't get hit as bad, and they come out of the next cycle better than before they went into the first cycle.
Steve, what about you? What do you feel has set you apart in terms of your strength?
Well, I mean, I think one is assessing risks, but probably the best thing is the ability to pick people to, you know, to work with. And I think it's a people's business. Real estate is a personal service business, and it's only as good as the people doing it.
Is it a gut feel? Can you
Yeah,
learn
you
it?
have to be very intuitive. I mean, you certainly have to know what's going around, have a vision for, you know, what is, and having an idea. I mean, we look at it this way. What's good for the city is the first thing. When we get involved in a lot of very large city projects and in a lot of
You're not
requests
scared
for
by
proposals.
government?
No, I think you work with government and you listen to what they want and what's in the interest of the city. And if you do that, you're going to survive in the long term. You're going to make a lot more money. I think too many people want to look at it to say, how much money can I make out of a project? And that's what's in the best interest of the city. And I think if you really take that into consideration, the opportunities open up. And I think that, you know, when you have a good team that can really assess that and put together a best-in-class project, you're going to be very successful.
How do you spot a winner? I'm just curious. Is it like grades, reference? I mean, is there anything just a particular thing that's always you've learned to be a deciding factor?
Well, I mean,
whether
you want
hire
somebody very bright, but I guess, you know, we look for PhDs, someone who's poor.
Really? Good luck.
Poor, hungry, and determined.
Right.
So
You
it's
know,
hunger.
that's what-
Is hunger the
I mean, you
decide-
have to have passion for what you're doing. I mean, That's
Sure.
probably the most important aspect of what someone you really look for. Is someone, the passion, and you know, obviously that's bright, but also is willing to put the hard work in and wants to really accomplish something.
I have to ask, why Miami Dolphins? What inspired you to become a team? Because that's a whole different coterie of, you've got, you know, more opinionated pundits, and you've got sports fans. Every picture I've seen, you're now posing with various states of irate Miami Dolphins fans are happy. I mean, what inspired, why was that something you felt was necessary to complete the picture?
You know, I'm a builder from within, and I feel I've built a great organization, and I want to use those skills in building a football organization, and loving sports, you know, is a real challenge, and I love challenges. It's a lot easier, I think, to be successful in business than it is to win on the football field. That I must tell you. But you know, it was really the challenge of building something, and you know, trying to win the Super Bowl and do something, and also recognizing that sports is really the kind of your least common denominator in this country, if you will, and really building a winning team, especially in the NFL, brings cities together, brings people together, and you can accomplish a lot more that way than, you know, than you can typically, and it's a great feeling what you can do for the community.
Billy, you've been a leader. If you were running the Miami Dolphins, would you be running it the same way? Would you have this? Would you have the same general manager, the same anything different? Any advice?
Absolutely.
Well,
Steve forgets that we bid together, and we were second by a lot for the Jet franchise. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
Okay, that's not the one that got away from. You know, and I know our time is running short, so if somebody wants to stand up and throw a shoe at me, by all means. But both of you have enough heft right now, and you did early on, to know that you could have a major impact. And I'm curious where you've chosen to focus your energies on the philanthropic front, the civic front, because you've been very active throughout your lives. Talk a little bit about that, because that's one of the hardest things, is knowing where you want to give back and where you want to focus your energies. So Bill.
Well, I've always believed that if you were fortunate in life, that you should give back. And if the way I look at philanthropy, it's kind of four legs of a chair. And if you're going to give back, I believe the four important things that you should look at are number one, education, not necessarily in order. Number one, education, healthcare, culture, and what your own religious beliefs in helping further them. So those are the four areas, and in those areas, I've been very active at the University of Pennsylvania
Sure.
in education. I'm just going to take over in April as chairman of the Board of Overseers of the Wharton School. I've been active in North Shore LIJ Health System, which is one of the 2 or 3 largest health systems in the United States. Lenox Hill is our New York hospital, and in the Guggenheim, where I currently serve as chairman of the board of the Guggenheim Foundation. And so I spend a lot of my time now on philanthropic things, and I'm active in various Jewish causes as well. Yeah. And I believe that it is important to give back, and it's been a family tradition, and I hope it's one that was passed on to me by my parents. It's one that I hope I've passed on to my sons, and I think it's important, especially when you're fortunate enough as Steve and I have been, and Steve feels the same way. You can outline what he's done. It's very important for one to do and to have the responsibility to try to help others.
And do you feel it's as easy to spend your money well? Is it different frustrations? I'm just curious if you find it to be a seamless transition, or if in some ways it's tougher.
In some ways it is tougher, but it's always very rewarding when you see the fruits of your labor, and when you see some things when you're able to help people, and when you see that some of the things you're doing, bear fruit in front of your eyes.
Steve, I want to ask you, just in terms of your focus, I know we can just list them off, but if you had to sort of crystallize even your philosophy toward giving and philanthropy, what would it be in terms of?
I think you give till you feel good.
And do you feel good?
The more I give, the better I feel.
Great. And I want to ask each of you, before we finish off and give some, obviously some parting words, each other, what do you think, if you look at each other in terms of what you feel is what's made Steve a success? What do you think has made him unique? Bill, what would you say about Steve? Steve, what would you say about Bill? Because obviously you've worked together, you enjoy each other. You don't have to be, this doesn't have to be serious. You can be something that, what do you think's the worst thing about him too?
I think that Steve is bright.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Bright enough. No, I'm just.
He's hardworking, he's ambitious, and he's very stubborn. And
Are those all the good qualities, or if you thrown up?
No, I look, he's very hard driving. And I think the combination of all those qualities, and he's being very determined about what he wants to do, have made him a tremendous success. Now, was that okay, Steve?
That was
Okay, now Steve, now you tell me about your thoughts on Bill.
Well, Bill's very, very competitive, to say the least. And,
You don't enjoy playing golf with him?
No, I do enjoy playing golf,
we do.
if I'm winning.
That's right.
And we're both, very strong-willed and have our points of view. I think we approach things somewhat a little differently,
How so?
Bill's more, I think, of an investor mentality. I'm more of a developer. I take bigger risks.
Nature of the business, yeah.
And we talk about that. And of course, Bill's, he's always right. And so,
I thought you were always right.
No, you usually had the large. You were always providing the equity, so you know. I had to
The
listen.
customer's always right.
You know.
I know you never agreed
That's
with
a-
me, but you listened
that's a
sometimes.
good business.
So I mean,
Sometimes.
this is all very polite. It's nice. We're getting near the end, and I don't think we have to, get to that. No, but Bill, he's been a great partner. You know, when we were doing Time Warner, we brought him there. He came on, and he was a great partner and added a lot to the developments. And
What's a great partner? Somebody who lets you do what you plan
No,
to do?
I think somebody who really, I think, sees, has a viewpoint that you listen to, you respect, and someone that adds something to the to the project, whatever you're working on. And I think he had a tremendous input, and he's been very helpful in the growth of our company and in working with us.
Blau and Beal, listen to that. You'll never hear it again.
Exactly. So let me ask, I want to finish off. Give some parting thoughts, both of you. It can be what's on your radar screen, advice given to you you'd give to, but just give some thoughts to this audience in terms of insights right now about, it doesn't have to be about real estate, it can be about business in general, but I'd love to hear each of you just give some thoughts to take away in terms of what's on your mind right now and what you would want, especially some of the people starting out or earlier in their career than you are.
Look, with all the problems in the country that we have, we live in the greatest country in the world, and we live in a country where, I remember I got into a cab, and I was riding, and I asked the cab driver, he was a young man, where he was from, and he said he was from Bangladesh. And so I said, are you married? He said, no, I have to bring my parents over, and I have to take my sister and my family over here, and I'm working hard so I can get them over here. And I said to him, you continue to work hard. He picked me up on Park Avenue, and I said, and your children can live on Park Avenue and can be as successful as their mind can imagine. So there's always the opportunity here. We live in a multicultural, in a multi-religious country with great freedoms and with great opportunities. Never forget it. For all of our problems, nobody in this world comes close to this country. So I feel personally very fortunate that my grandparents came here and that I was afforded the opportunity to be successful. And we all should understand that, Steve and I both do business in a lot of countries. It's not the way any place else. There's not the opportunities, not the freedoms.
And still.
Any place else,
Yeah.
in any place in the world.
No, I mean, I totally agree with Bill. I mean, this is a great country. There's still a lot of opportunities here. I mean, I think you have to recognize that when you're doing business, the other guy has to win also, and that it has to work, and it is how you treat people, and both on the way up and the way down, and I've been very fortunate to have met a lot of people, and I think people in New York, probably has greater opportunities because people will listen to you, and if you have something to say or something to give.
People in New York are more likely to listen to you than anywhere else?
I think so.
Oh, didn't know
And
that.
I think this is the greatest city for opportunity there is in probably the world.
Great.
And it's a great place, but you have to realize, it can't all work your way, And I mean, that's why I think the best thing that we do is really work with the cities, and we succeed because of that.
Yeah, and persistence pays off, as seen by the Hudson Yards. We've
Well, it hasn't paid off yet.
well, paying off. Well, I'd like to thank the two gentlemen on stage. Thank you very much. Bill Mack, Steve Ross. I'm sorry we didn't get through all the questions, but I think this is great insight from both of you, and pleasure to see you both interact with each other. Thanks
Thank you.
again,
Thank you very
everybody.
much. Thank you.
Thank you very
That's
much.
terrific.
It's
That's
great.
terrific.
Nice to see you.